When I picked up the MX Master 4 a few weeks ago, it got me thinking about expectations. Sometimes they're really high, like there might be some press around it, people are talking about it, but you get it in hand and it's really not worth the hype. And then sometimes the opposite happens, where expectations are really low, but then you're surprised with how good it is. And I think that the MX Master 4 falls somewhere in between, where the expectations are high, but it's able to deliver on that promise. Opening up the box, you're met with the Master 4 right on top, and it now ships with a USB-C bolt receiver, which is something that I've been looking forward to for many years. I run a Mac Studio at home, so I've got plenty of ports, but when I'm on the go, I'm using my MacBook Air, which only has 2 USB-C ports. And so now, not having to connect a USB-C hub just to use a mouse is a huge upgrade. Plus, because of its compact size, it sits more flush against my MacBook. One thing to note though is if you do get the MX Master 4 for Mac like I have here, it doesn't ship with the USB-C dongle, so you'll need to purchase that separately. The other thing that you might find missing is a charging cable. And this is something we're starting to see with more and more companies. Just a few weeks ago, I was reviewing the AirPods Pro 3, and you might remember that they too didn't come with a charging cable. It's not a big deal for me. I usually have a USB-C cable connected to the Creative Console on my desk, and if I need to plug in, I just end up using that. Now, getting to the mouse itself, there's quite a few visual and design changes. The biggest being the materials. Logitech has finally ditched the rubber from previous generations. With my old 3S, it's great out of the box, but quickly picks up dirt and grime and is a nightmare to keep clean. And so with the Master 4, they're using a much harder plastic with this really nice texture to it that's way more durable and does a better job of resisting against smudges. Plus, they've still retained some of the grippiness by leaving some rubber along the sides where your fingers sit. The shape has also been refined, a shorter profile, smoother around the edges, and just less chunky overall. I definitely find it much more comfortable to hold, and even though the weight has slightly increased, it's way easier to glide across the table. As for the primary buttons, they're now treated in this frosted look that kind of reminds me of liquid glass. And when I was looking at the photos online, I was a little bit concerned that they wouldn't look cohesive. And on the unit that I have here, they do stick out a bit, but I think it adds a nice bit of contrast. And the feeling matches the look. They're definitely quieter than the ones on the 3S, but still retain that sharp clicky feedback that makes the entire mouse satisfying to use. The scroll wheel is still mag speed, and I'm glad that they didn't tinker around with it a whole lot. It scrolls smoothly through long pages, but then instantly locks into precise steps for accuracy, which I haven't found another mouse that does it this well. On the side, the thumb button built into the grip has now been moved to just in front of the forward and back buttons. I'm personally not a fan of this change. I mean, I didn't use this button a whole lot, but I can see those that might rely on it, how they might get some accidental presses. One thing that might have helped is maybe using a different shape or texture to help separate out the buttons. And then the side scroll wheel also got an update. It's a lot longer and a lot easier to reach, but one thing that would have been nice is some sort of feedback similar to the main scroll wheel for added precision. On the technical side, the Master 4 still uses the same 8000 DPI sensor from the 3S, and then battery life remains unchanged with up to 70 days on a single charge. But in my testing, I found that after 2 to 2.5 weeks of daily usage, the battery life fell below 30%, at which point I put it on the charger, which is more than fine. Now, there are 2 big new features for this year. The first is Haptics, and initially I thought it would be nothing more than a gimmick, but in fact, it adds to the overall experience in a small but meaningful way. So when you power on the mouse, you'll actually feel a small vibration that lets you know that it's on and connected. And then when you're in pairing mode, it switches to a pulse-like pattern to let you know what state you're in without having to look. But probably the best use case I've seen is when the battery is running low, where it'll give you a short buzz to let you know it's time to plug in. But the haptics have another benefit, and it's kind of linked to the second big feature, which is action rings. Now, this is something that we first saw on the Creative Console earlier this year, and now Logitech is bringing that to the MX Master 4. The only difference is that I don't have to take my hands off my keyboard just to access it. So if I hit this button on the thumb grip, it brings up the action ring, and then from there I can do things like play and pause my music, adjust the volume, bring up the emoji drawer, and even access AI tools like Gemini and ChatGPT. And as you move around, you're getting that haptic feedback, which is especially useful for something like the volume to make those more precise adjustments. Now, this is some pretty basic stuff, but I do want to show you two apps where I use action rings the most and how they make my workflow that much faster. So first, let's hop into Figma, and I actually use Figma to create the thumbnails for these videos. So if I zoom in here, I can select the text here, and then if I bring up the action ring, then I can left align the text, I can reduce the font size a little bit, and then I can go over here and I can adjust the spacing between the letters. I think that looks good. The other app that I use is Premiere Pro, and especially in video editing, shortcuts is everything. Now, most of the time when I'm editing, I'll gravitate towards the MX Creative Console to toggle playback, grab various tools, or set the playhead to the beginning or end of a selected clip. But for color grading, that's when I use the action rings. So here I have a clip that I'm working on, and if I open the action ring, I can see the various tools that I have. So here I can adjust the temperature of the clip, I can adjust the tint a little bit if I want to, and then I'm going to boost the exposure. And then finally, I'm going to increase the saturation a little bit. And all of this ties into the Logitech Options software. Here, you can see the default button mappings, and then if you hover over the apps, you can see how those button mappings change. And this is where you can also customize the actions ring. So if I hit the Show Actions ring and then Configure Actions ring, I can see Premiere here. I can see all the different tools that I showed you earlier. And if I click through each app, I can see all the different actions, and then I can customize these depending on what I need. Now, one thing I didn't like was how buried this menu felt, but there's actually a faster way to get there. So if we go back here to the home screen, you click on Actions ring at the top, and then click Customize ring. Now, there's actually a good reason why the Actions ring is on the homepage to begin with, and that's because it's universal across devices. So the same action ring that I access from my MX Creative Console are the same ones that are going to be available on my mouse. Moving to the next menu down, this is where you can make adjustments to things like scroll speed, scroll direction, Smart Shift, which allows you to move between the free flow and ratchet modes when you're scrolling really quickly. And this is where you can also adjust the button sensitivity of that actions button. So here you can see that I have it set to medium. Then you have haptic feedback, where you can make adjustments to the haptic intensity and then customize how and when you get haptic feedback. And then finally, you have Easy Switch, which allows you to see the devices that are paired to your mouse that you can switch between. And then Logitech Flow, that allows you to use the same mouse and keyboard across multiple computers. Now, in terms of pricing, the MX Master 4 comes in at $159, which is in the same ballpark of the MX Master 3S when it launched. And you have a few colors to choose from: graphite, pale gray, and this darker space black that I have here. But here's the thing, if you already own the MX Master 3S, I don't think this is a must-have upgrade. The improvements are nice, but they're more refinements than game changers. Where this mouse really makes sense is for those users upgrading from a Master 2S or even the original MX Master, where the changes to the design, the features, and the customization are a lot more meaningful. So overall, the MX Master 4 doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it doesn't need to. What you're getting is a mouse that takes everything that Logitech has been refining for years and polishes it even further. The materials feel way better day to day, the haptics add a layer of feedback that actually makes a difference, and the actions ring bring a set of seriously useful shortcuts to my workflow. It's still the productivity standard in my book, and for a lot of people, it'll be the mouse to beat. If you made it this far, drop a like if you found this helpful, and let me know down in the comments if you plan on getting the MX Master 4. And of course, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more desk setup and productivity gear on the channel. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.